And do want to remind you that we do have an award-winning blog, or perhaps someday an award-winning blog on idealism versus realism, which is what we spoke about yesterday. 580-5436, 580-KIDU are our numbers. Let's start with Pro-Life. Good morning, Pro-Life. Pro-Life.
Yeah, President Trump shouldn't be making statements like he's going to, just by in and of himself, get rid of bump stocks. If anything, that is in the jurisdiction of Congress, and probably it isn't even there. That's for the state to decide, the individual states, whether they're going to allow that. And so I'm just asking one congressman, maybe from Idaho, to say, listen, that's an impeachable offense. You're exceeding your jurisdiction. You're not going to hear anybody say that, but that's really what should happen. He's totally out of line in doing that. And
well, and for people that are just tuning in, let's hear from the president, who's decided that he's just going to make the calls here concerning bump stocks, and doesn't matter what anybody says. Let's take a listen at KIDO Talk Radio.
By the way, bump stocks, we're writing that out. I'm writing that out myself. I don't care if Congress does it or not. I'm writing it out myself, okay? You put it into the machine gun category, which is what it is. It becomes essentially a machine gun, and nobody's going to be able. It's going to be very hard to get them. So we're writing out bump stocks.
There we have it. We're writing out bump stocks. And the president has decided to do that regardless of what anybody else says.
Yeah.
Let's get your thoughts on that.
Are you still there, Kevin?
I am pro-life.
Well, Congress needs to start writing him out, because he cannot be doing that. Now, when he went and bombed in Syria, the airport in Syria, I don't think he had jurisdiction to do that. But you didn't hear anybody come up and say, listen, he doesn't have that jurisdiction. That's outside of his war power. I think it was outside of the designation that Congress had given way back in 2000-something. But anyway, no, they need to discipline him. They need to sit on him, because presidents, if they can get away with something with bump stocks, they'll go up to something else. It's just their nature.
Well, and that's really what it comes down to when you have the progressives say, well, why do you need an AR-15? Because I can. And do you think if we're going to trust government that, and here's the deal, pro-life, you want the best for the state, for your family, and everything else. But when we have a situation where the government was caught lying and the government was caught surveilling. You remember Edward Snowden?
Right.
He caught him.
Yep.
He caught him lying.
Yep.
And what happened to those people?
Nothing.
What happened to all the people that committed fraud and bilked the taxpayers and good people that were renting or buying homes during the financial collapse? Was anybody arrested for that?
Nope.
No. So there's a healthy distrust for government. Our founding fathers that gave us this great nation through God had a massive distrust for government. So, yes, we don't trust the government. What happens when you give away your firearms? Well, then you're not the boss. They're the boss. They determine what's going to happen.
Kevin, you happen to be right. And no, if you shouldn't vote for anybody unless they are nobody going to Congress should be elected unless they say that we're going to impeach a president when he gets out of his jurisdiction, or we're going to impeach federal judges when they exceed their jurisdiction, and they do it all the time. So that's all I got to say.
All right, pro-life, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. As we've been covering all morning long, Edward Stack has said that Dick's Sporting Goods will not sell assault rifles. I don't know what assault rifles are. Assault-style weapons? Could that be a bow and arrow? Could that be a crossbow? Could that be a butter knife? Here's what he had to say here at KIDO Talk Radio.
Based on what's happened and looking at those kids and those parents, it moved us all unimaginably. And to think about the loss and the grief that those kids and those parents had, we said we need to do something, and we're taking these guns out of all of our stores.
Sure. Dick's Sporting Goods, that's one reaction. And then you have the other reaction, which is to arm yourself, arm your family, and train for the unthinkable, to train to make sure that you can defend yourself. But Edward Stack, like Delta and others, they believe they're doing a good thing. And this is where we go a little deeper at 580-KIDO. They do believe they're doing a good thing by shutting down the NRA. By, within 2 weeks, these kids are back to school. They're in our thoughts and prayers. And yet we need to shut down the NRA, and we need to shut down everything else, right? That's crazy. It's insane that we're going to come to a solution. Again, it's idealism versus realism. Check it out at KIDOTalkRadio.com. Idealism versus realism. Ideally, there are no bad people. Ideally, we pass laws and everybody obeys. But that's why they're criminals. They don't obey the laws, Mr. Stack.
As we looked at what happened down in Parkland, and we were so disturbed and saddened by what happened, we felt we really needed to do something. And so we've decided not to sell these assault weapons any longer in any of our stores.
Again, that is Dick's Sporting Goods, and Dick's Sporting Goods can do whatever they want, right? But on the other hand, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, is that going to really solve the problem? And then you have the kids going up to Tallahassee, Florida. Now you're going to have people here saying that we should do something. By the way, I've been saving this for a while. This is from the Idaho Statesman. These are kids from Idaho that this is what they are saying.
It's going to happen to you until it does. I'm tired of being scared to go to school.
Everyone thinks that it can't happen to them until it actually does.
We've lived in this life where we think about, what if today's the day?
It's always in the back of your mind that, am I next?
Children should not be scared to go to school.
Now, at 580-5436, these are kids from Treasure Valley Schools, and they're getting ready for their march on the Capitol, March 24th. Not to be confused, I guess that's a national march. That'll be the same day. And I'd really like to know the answer to this. Do people really fear going to school? Once this shooting is out of the news, do we fear that? And if we do fear that, what are we going to do about it? Pass a law that you can't buy a rifle at Dick's Sporting Goods? Is that really going to make you feel better? Arming teachers, will that make you feel better? As Roger said last hour, the idea that you have people in there, you don't know who it is. The idea that a target is hardened, right?
School should be a safe environment to learn. I have 4 nephews and 2 nieces, and I don't want them to grow up in this world and to be scared of all this stuff.
Ever since the shooting, I've been kind of terrified to go to school.
Living like that is not a way to live.
It really affects me, and that's why I'm here.
It really hits home, and you want to be able to do something.
We're going to protest and we're going to march for what we believe in, because we want action. We want progress. We want to see something really happen.
Okay, at 580-5436. Now, these are kids 16, 17, 18 years old. You can, and this is my own personal opinion, and let me apologize in advance if it's insensitive. We can protest, we can shout, but I don't think that's going to stop the criminals of the world. Now, there is a belief that it will, that if you restrict all the guns, do you know there are, and I'm sure you do, there are thousands of gun laws on the books. Thousands. It doesn't stop this from happening. It doesn't stop somebody, the other day somebody said, well, what would happen if somebody opened up on Republicans? They did. They almost killed a congressman, a couple of them. Where was the outcry then?
It just kind of flipped the switch, this is real. You need to do something about it, because not too many people are standing up. This is your time to actually make a change.
I talked to other students, if they wanted to be involved in this, and they're like, yes, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this fear that's inside in me.
Well, I hope, the people that make the laws, that they watch and they see that we matter and we deserve to have, to be safe.
We have to all come together. I hope this march just spreads awareness about the issue and people open their minds and not just think it's about gun control. It's a lot bigger than that.
It's such a complex issue, but I think that with the great minds we have, we can figure something out because there has to be a solution to this issue.
There is no solution. There is no logic, in my opinion. That's what life experience teaches us. It'd be nice to give these kids a hug. It'd be nice to go back in time when we were kids, or perhaps your children or children's children were kids, and protect them from all the bad people and protect them and say that you are loved, we love you, we protect you. But as a society today is disarming people the way to go? I don't think so. America, by the grace of God, we have this beautiful country. And kids, that's what these old codgers like myself will say to you. It's about life experience. People don't always think logically. Look at the terrorist. Look at everything else going on. So we're going to have a march. Is that really going to do anything? And by the way, quite frankly, I don't really think that the schools, no, I'm not going to qualify it. The schools should not sanction this. You miss a day, you miss your work. It shouldn't be an excused absence. Nicole in Cuna with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Nicole.
Hi, good morning. Well, I just wanted to respond to a few things you said, and one of them was your question of, are kids really scared to go to school? I have two boys. One does do online school, and the other one is in first grade. My family hunts and are a proud gun owner. The day the shooting happened, I mean, it broke my heart. I followed the story on the radio. However, also that very same day, coincidentally, my 12-year-old son, who's hunted for the last 2 years, earned enough money to go buy him a new .22. And I had no problems taking him out and buying him a gun, and it coincidentally was the same day this happened, you know. I think that there needs to be more education in youth, especially if they're in towns where there are more guns. But also, I don't understand why we don't have any security at schools. It's a government building. Any other government building I've ever been to has security. They could at least have one person watching security cameras. So rather than just jumping to taking guns away, I just don't understand why there's not serious conversations about some forms of security in our schools. And I don't understand why when that does come up, people act like that's not going to be an effective solution.
Indeed. And you do have some schools that do have security and cameras and everything else, but not everybody does that.
Right. It should be a standard across the board, I feel like. You know, we're in America, kind of like courthouses, I think, across the board probably have some standard of security, you know. And I think our kids should have that same level of priority when it comes to security at school, and I think that would be more effective. And I do agree that a lot of these younger kids that are speaking out, I understand where their heart is, but I do feel like they're being played as pawns to some degree, and they don't know both sides of the issue and understand the full scope of everything.
Nicole, thank you for the call.
Oh, you're welcome. Have a good day.
You too. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
Dick's Sporting Goods is ending sales of all assault-style rifles in its stores. The company also will not sell any gun to anyone under 21 years of age, regardless of local laws. Chief Executive Edward Stack, son of the company founder, says, when we saw what happened in Parkland, we were so disturbed and upset. We love those kids and their rallying cry, enough is enough. It got to us. Janico Sola, Fox News.
And we continue on. Kevin Miller here, taking your phone calls at KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go to Adam in Boise with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Adam.
Yeah, hey, Kevin. I just had 2 points, really. Number one, I think you remember Rahm Emanuel, who said, never let a good crisis go to waste, I believe is what he said. I feel bad for these kids because I think by and large, some of them it might be organic, but by and large they're being manipulated by hardcore leftist cultural Marxists, you know, a la, you know, Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals, you know, using crises to push political agendas. I think the majority of this is being organized by adults. They're using the children as pawns, go march, you know, miss a day of school, go march for something that, obviously they won't teach them the Second Amendment. They won't teach them why it exists, but they'll sure as heck try to, manipulate them to disarm. And, you know, as I said, the whole reason that, the Second Amendment exists is not to protect people's right to hunt. It's to protect yourself from the government. And they will not teach kids that in school, I guarantee you. So I said, I think they're being manipulated. Point number 2 is if you really are in the mood to protect people from themselves, and, you know, the government seems to be desirous, or people seem to be desirous to do that lately, ban alcohol. Number 1 killer probably of people in this country, indirectly or directly, is alcohol. So how come we don't hear people wanting to bring back prohibition? Look at how many tens of thousands of innocent people die every year as a direct result of alcohol, and I guarantee you it kills more people than guns could ever hope to. But they don't, you never hear that.
Well, you're right. I mean, it's idealism versus realism.
Yeah,
Let's ban fried chicken. Let's ban heart disease.
Yeah. To make murder illegal, it already is. So
yeah. I mean, sadly, that's the point. And, you know, your heart breaks for these kids. And we were playing the clips from The Statesman, and I'm like, you know, blessed are the voices of the children, but I mean, they're very naive because they don't have the life experiences. We can bring these great minds together, yes, but that doesn't mean that you're going to have the desired result.
Well, blessed are the children, but here's the problem: is that you remember the Hitler Youth. Not comparing them to that. I want to make that clear. However, where do these people like to go? The children. They like to go after the children to brainwash them and convince them that their ideology is the correct one. And if you look at the college campuses, rampant with liberalism. I graduated from college in 2002 down in South Florida, and I couldn't believe, even in those days, it wasn't that long ago, the strident, leftist ideology that was peddled in, you'd be taking an art history class as an elective, and the teacher's bashing George W. Bush. I wasn't a George W. Bush fan, but I'm like, is this really the venue? They cannot keep their opinions to themselves. They know that they're protected to brainwash children. And I think that's where a lot of these problems stem from. The attacking children and getting them to fall under their ideology is one of their main goals.
Adam, don't be a stranger. Thank you for calling to KIDO Talk Radio.
Thank you.
Traffic and weather. And we continue on. Let's go to Big John. Big John joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Big John.
Yes, Kevin. In response to the governor of Washington, he should leave it up to each individual teacher to decide whether or not they want to carry a gun. Now, given the fact, though, that he's in liberal Washington, where a lot of those teachers have been brainwashed to think like he does, so maybe that is the case, versus conservative Kentucky. So you have that too.
Well, I mean, just the idea. And by the way, for people just tuning in here, Big John, let me refresh this. Here you have the governor of the state of Washington lecturing the president on first grade teachers carrying weapons, as if there's a difference between a first grade teacher and a middle school or a high school teacher. Here it is at KIDO Talk Radio.
Whatever percentage it is, speaking as a grandfather, right, speaking as the governor of the state of Washington, I have listened to the people who would be affected by that. I've listened to the biology teachers, and they don't want to do that at any percentage. I've listened to the first grade teachers that don't want to be pistol packing first grade teachers. I've listened to law enforcement who have said they don't want to have to train teachers as law enforcement agencies, which takes about 6 months.
There we have it. And he's lecturing the president right there.
Right. And the liberal mind has really forgotten how freedom and law and order came to this country in the first place. Guns were absolutely essential in the process of not only winning the West, but also winning the East. People talk about the Wild West, liberals do, and think, we don't want everybody armed, it'll be like the Wild West. Well, what about the Wild East that existed long before the Wild West? It was even worse, and they forget that.
Well, they conveniently forget that. There wasn't a meeting of the great minds. It was peace through superior firepower.
Right, and that's how this country came on. And if you look at George Washington, he knew the value of guns in the hands of honest and upright citizens. He knew they were good, and we've forgotten that. We've forgotten the message that the founding fathers had given us, and the central role that guns played in that. And banning AR-15s, Dick's Sporting Goods, that guy's he's crazy if he thinks that he can affect the outcome of shootings by banning AR-15s. all he's going to do is drive people like me away from his store, if that's what he's going to do.
Big John, thank you for the call.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, let's continue on. We go to Craig in Boise with KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Craig.
Good morning, Kevin. How you doing, sir?
Living the dream, and you?
Oh, I'm probably better than I deserve.
Touché.
Hey, I just wanted to let you know that I work as the team lead for a safety team that's at one of our Treasure Valley churches. I won't say which one. But I'm also connected to about 6 other churches, through friends and acquaintances in the valley. And all of these churches are starting or have safety teams, or if you want to call them security teams, that are armed. And if it's good enough, the difference between church and state, we talked about the separation of church and state, was all somebody's in their right mind and somebody's not. And when a government decides that our children have to be in some place where there are no firearms to protect them, or people that are not well enough trained in law enforcement to even affect any safety for them, then it really ought to be up to people. And, these are not, at least in our case, these are not willy-nilly things. I mean, everybody on our team has the Idaho Enhanced Permit, and everybody has to pass the Ada County Sheriff's long pistol course, which is a timed course of fire that the patrol officers use to qualify with. And that's the requirement for anybody to carry concealed. So, I mean, if the churches are figuring it out and people are figuring it out, I don't know why we can't make this transition, except for we're going to have to people that are in the government that really don't respect things that actually work.
Well, Craig, you're right about that, and I do have friends that are, serve in the security forces and everything else, and that is happening around the Treasure Valley, and doesn't really need to be reported, but you're right. People are concerned, and they're doing the right thing by protecting themselves, and I mean, how many of us are looking around, when we hear about this thing, especially what happened with that church in Charleston, going, what happens if it happens here?
Yeah. And I think the thing that's really interesting, too, when you talk about people are afraid of people doing this, invariably, most people don't even know that there's a safety team half the time. And when they find out that the church has one, they're like, thank you. Thank you for doing that. I mean, and these are adults, okay, not children. And we ought to be letting adults make decisions about the protection of our children, and the parents making decisions about the protection of our children. But I am all on board. We have let this thing go way too long.
Well, you make a great point when you're saying let the adults make the decisions.
I mean, we see, hey, I was a child once, and I got in a lot of trouble with myself as my own guide.
Well, yes, I can relate to that. The older I get, the less I know.
Yeah, all right. Anyways, thank you very much for your program, Kevin. Appreciate you letting me air it out.
Your home is our home. Thank you, Craig.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye-bye. 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Here is the mayor of Broward County.
One person didn't do what he should have done. It's horrific. It makes me sick to my stomach that we had a deputy that didn't go in.
Actually, there were 4. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning.
And coming up, more of your phone calls. Jim in Star. He wants to speak on how to protect loved ones, but we go to Dina McLaughlin in Eagle for a big event today in Eagle. Dina, good morning.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Good to have you with us. So what's going on?
Well, this Friday we're having fill the van. We're going to be down at Shoes Idaho Running Company with both Susan G. Komen and the Idaho Food Bank. Kicking off, the Idaho Food Bank has their Million Meals in March campaign, while Susan G. Komen is kicking off their 20th anniversary of Race for the Cure. So for every food item you bring in, you get $1 off your Race for the Cure registration and also a shoe purchase. We have all kinds of activities going on, giveaways. It's going to be lots of fun.
And when we talk about how important this is, a very important personal story for you.
It is, yes. I've been an advocate for several breast cancer organizations since 2011 when a dear friend of mine was taken from us. So yeah, I've made a promise to her that I would keep doing everything I could to keep fighting to find this cure. We need to find a cure. So I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I'm a senior at Boise State, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and I wanted to bring in the Idaho Food Bank as a little twist because, you know, a lot of times organizations don't work together, so I thought it would be kind of cool to have two organizations get back to the community at the same time. So yeah, that's how this all came about.
Well, and then you've got the chief of Eagle and the fire chief of Eagle, the police chief and the fire chief going at it as well.
That's exactly right. They've been, for the past 2 weeks, they're doing a friendly little food drive, and at 2 o'clock on Friday, they're going to come down with their food donations, and we're going to see who won the friendly competition. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
It is, for a very important cause.
Yeah, and, you know, I've got Chobani Yogurt donating yogurt, and Albertsons donating water. It's all come together. It's really exciting.
Sure. And once again, when can people start donating?
Anytime. The event is Friday from 10 to 6, but the Idaho Food Bank always takes donations. You can go to, there's several locations in Eagle that you could donate food. One is the City Hall. There's also one at the police station, and then also the fire station one. You can take donations there. But we'll be at Shoes, Idaho Running Company, all day on Friday, and super excited. And of course, Mike Schumann is a huge supporter, and super excited to have it at his location.
Right, and of course we love Mike, and of course Chief Cowley, and the fire chief, Chief Colvett. It's going to be a great time in Eagle. Dina, thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. You take care. There we have it. Let's go from one spectrum to the other. Jim, not to be confused with Jimmy, in Star at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir.
I answer to both. I just don't answer to James.
By the way, his handle on Twitter is Top Jimmy at the Real Top Jimmy. Is it Real Top Jimmy or is it just Top Jimmy on Twitter?
Yeah, the Real Top Jimmy.
Not to be confused with the fake Top Jimmy, but I'm sorry, sir. I have distracted from your time here.
No, I appreciate that. There's a lot of fun stuff on there. If people want to check it out, it's not like I don't promote it or anything, but I definitely don't hold anything back. So if people want to get entertained, it's good. But hey, I wanted to say to you, thanks for covering, the Florida shooting like you have. And I've been sort of, just absent about it because it's just so troubling, Kevin, that, you see so many times that this could have been stopped. It really could have. And it's just so crazy, the world we live in, where the NRA, is the scapegoat now and they're being blamed. And it's just so weird. Like I said to my mother-in-law yesterday, I said it'd be like blaming people that manufacture bow and arrows, if they did a better job, at making better bows and arrows, then people wouldn't buy guns. You know what I mean? It's so weird. It hurts anybody that actually has a logical brain. It goes against everything. But I want to say this. I want to say that, we have to protect our families and we have to protect our loved ones. And you know what? I'll protect a total stranger, Kevin. I've pulled a gun one time in my life, and it was in L.A., and I pulled it to save a complete stranger. I never knew the person's name. I never knew anything else. I just knew that without me getting involved, this young man would have probably been beaten to death. So that's why I did it. And it stopped that from happening. And, since the day of the Colorado movie theater shooting, I've never taken my family or friends or anything to a movie without having a firearm discreetly tucked away where I could get to it quick, but nobody knows I've got it. Because the last thing I want to do is be a defenseless little sheep, little lemming sitting there watching my loved ones get picked off one by one and not have one way to defend myself.
See, the beauty of Idaho, and I don't mean to interrupt, sir, is that Greg Pruitt and Seth and everybody else with the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance got that concealed carry without a permit through.
Yeah, that's awesome. And let me blow everybody's mind real quick. Think about this one. I recently worked for a large company here in Idaho for a few years, and I worked with a lot of guys that are our age, Kevin, and they were born and raised here, unlike you and me. And they drove to school with shotguns, with bolt-action hunting rifles, with .22s, all of those different types of firearms in their pickups, many of them displayed in the back window. Do you think there was ever anybody shot in those days at a school shooting here?
No.
None. And these guys brought their guns to school, and they were parked in the school parking lot with their firearms. And you know why they did it. It's cool. You can show it off. And the other reason is a lot of them went and did hunting after school. It's just like in our climate here and in our way of life, it's just like going fishing after school. And it just goes to show you, like you've said a million times, and thanks for not backing down. A lot of people are backing down. A lot of people are getting scared and trying to be politically correct, and you're sticking with common sense. And it's been great. But, I just had to share that. Don't be a victim. Don't be a victim. Protect yourself. And one more thing I'll say, as we get older, I've got some physical limitations now, as you know. I can't run like the wind like I used to, and I'm not as quick and agile. So, you know what? If a 21-year-old or 25-year-old punk wants to assault me or my family, to even get close to a level playing field, I need to have some kind of weapon. And that's why I carry it. And I advise people to do it. And if you don't know what you're doing, don't carry it. But if you do, and you spend the time to learn how to use the tool, which is the firearm, then go ahead. And that's my piece.
Your piece is always welcome here, Jim.
Over and out. Take care, guys. See ya.
All right. Jim from Star joining us. We go to the publisher of the Gem State Patriot, Tea Party Bob, who in fact has openly carried in the past. We've had some confrontations with folks, and I can recall that Tea Party Bob was sitting there watching that with while drinking from his sippy cup while carrying a weapon. Good morning, sir.
You're a piece of work, I have to tell you. There's no question about it.
And the fine folks at Ada County came up and they didn't hassle you, even though you were carrying.
No, actually, the police around here are pretty good when it comes to something like that. We're going to publish something this morning, which I think everybody is going to be interested in. And it has to do with something called a Memorandum of Understanding Agreement. And this is something that is an agreement that Broward County had put in place because basically they had way too many of their students being arrested and put into jail. Now, this particular MOU explains why the perp was visited 39 times, why the first responders were awaiting outside for instruction, why the FBI was warned but really didn't do anything. It answers all the questions that we've all been asking. And when you find out who this actually came from, there's a link here to an attorney at the Advancement Project where she worked to end the school-to-prison pipeline. Now, when you see a program like this, you have to wonder, where did the funds come from? So who funds the Advancement Project? On a hunch, this fellow who sent me this looked this up. The beneficiaries of the Open Society Foundations, George Soros. And guess who was at the top of the list? The Advancement Project. And I have all the links. We're going to publish all this stuff. there's a lot more to this story than meets the eye, and it has a lot to do with the way we deal with the kids, the way they make these deals to make these particular communities look better than they really are, and the stupidity of the people who are sitting there crying for our guns when, as I said yesterday, society is the problem. It's not the guns. We created this, and the liberal progressives put this into place. If you continue to do stupid things, you continue to get stupid results. And as I've said before, you cannot fix stupid. So I urge everybody to take a look at this. We'll put it up on our Facebook too. But this is something that actually should be read. And people should understand what's going on in our country that nobody wants to talk about. It's all of this hidden behind the scenes. We need to bring everything out into the open. We need to get society to change the way it thinks. It's been way too long since we've gotten back to the basics of life, which is actually having a home life, having a mother and father who actually look out for the kids on a day-to-day basis, having them go to school and actually learn something, except what these liberal progressives teach them. Anyway, Kevin, that's about all I have this morning. I thank you very much.
Our great friend, Tea Party Bob, publisher of the Gem State Patriot. Coming up next, your thoughts on what the governor of Kentucky had to say. Do we have that? Let's take a listen here at KIDO Talk.
When we mock and ridicule the very foundational principles that this nation was built upon, where you treat people the way you'd want to be treated, where you respect human life, where you respect the dignity of women and of children and of people who we have increasingly degraded in our society. This culture of death is becoming pervasive.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
By the way, bump stocks, we're writing that out. I'm writing that out myself. I don't care if Congress does it or not. I'm writing it out myself, okay? You put it into the machine gun category, which is what it is. It becomes essentially a machine gun, and nobody's going to be able. It's going to be very hard to get them. So we're writing out bump stocks.
There we have the President of the United States says, doesn't really matter what Congress does. He's going to do what he wants. That's scary. That is scary when you're thinking about this. When we're talking about bump stocks, when we're talking about the president just saying he's going to do it. Now, those of us that like President Trump are going to go, hey, it's no big deal. The president's with us. Can you imagine if Barack Obama said this? If Hillary Clinton said this? If Chuck Schumer said this?
After the shooting in Las Vegas, senators tried to do something here in the Senate about bump stocks, the modification that allowed the perpetrator to automatically fire his arsenal of assault weapons.
The bump stocks. You notice we're not blaming the perpetrator. We're blaming the equipment. Traffic and weather together are.
It doesn't make sense to the members of the NRA, but it makes sense to the leadership of the NRA because they don't represent their members. They represent the gun makers and the gun sellers.
Right, as if it's evil to make a gun, to own a gun, to sell a gun. Look, I wish we could have a rational discussion about this. And maybe we will, but I still keep going back to what the governor of Kentucky said. When we promote a culture of violence, when we denigrate women, when we devalue children, when we position them, promote them to violent video games and television and YouTube and everything else, we've created this problem. Mental health, mental illness, prescription drugs, people ignoring issues. It is a whole cumulative problem, not just something that you can just wave a magic wand. That's the naive idealism, right? We live in the real world where we work each and every day and we thank God for our families and protect ourselves. Hopefully, we can make a difference. Good day. God bless, Ray. Great job. Keep the faith.